So I'm going to be talking about property rights enforcement and policy design. The general point that I want to make in this presentation is related to the difference, a distinction that I'm making here between what I'm calling idealized and constrained optimal environmental protection policies. Conceptually, the key aspect that I want to highlight is basically the capacity and the incentives for public and private monitoring and enforcement of policies. There are three aspects that link this discussion in my mind. One is the issue of property right assignment. The other one is the issue of monitoring capacity. It could be technological or manpower monitoring capacity and incentives. And the third issue would be the issue of enforcement. Obviously, these aspects are very interrelated. They interact with each other. So you have a very aggressive regulation, such as prohibition, for instance, under limited monitoring or enforcement capacity, and also with undefined property rights. Very, very strict policies can actually backfire very badly. These are exports of mahogany from Brazil between the early 90s and 2013. The thick dark line is basically legal exports of mahogany. This dashed line represents exports of what are called like other tropical timber species. And this is actually describing the evolution of mahogany regulation in Brazil. So before 1999, mahogany could be extracted under what were called management plans. In 1999, due to environmental concerns and to pressures, both internal and external pressures related to deforestation and mahogany extraction, actually 85% of these firms are shut down. Later on in 2002, the market was shut down completely. So what we observed during this period is when mahogany extraction was actually legal, exports were contained under a certain level and they were actually coming down. Right? You actually observe some exports after the market shut down because specimens that were extracted before prohibition could be exported later on. As soon as the more aggressive restriction on the market kicks in, is that you have these exports of this random residual category that just skyrocket immediately. So this was actually mahogany being exported as another species. This is basically monthly data. It's even more extreme. You see that these exports of other tropical timber species did not exist. And 2 or 3 months after the suspension of 85% of the management plans, it's just skyrocketed. Then it increases again after prohibition, and then it comes down. In other projects, in an ongoing project, we show that this was also associated with increased deforestation and increased cattle ranching in mahogany occurring areas. We also show that there was an explosion of violence in mahogany occurring areas that followed very closely exports, right? Exports of these other tropical timber species. So this is an example of an aggressive policy under very weak enforcement that basically what it did was to turn a legal market into illegal. Up to 2008, this was a disastrous policy for any dimension, right? The very resource that we wanted to protect was harmed, and we had side effects associated with violence and deforestation and other problems. The 2008 reversal that we saw there is actually a combination of both technology and policy. So there was a package of policies with different dimensions. One example is that, for instance, access to rural credit became conditional on environment requirements at the municipality level. And Juliana Assunção and other environmental researchers in Brazil show that this actually had a major effect on reducing deforestation. And the last point I want to make is that minor changes in the design of regulations may affect private monitoring. They also can have substantial effects. Small changes in policy, even in tax policy, by creating incentives of private monitoring along the production chain, can also go a long way helping curb these illegal activities and also through that increase environmental protection.